Right, we'll make a start then. Thank you very much, Rebecca, for sorting out all the tech that is making this happen. And thank you to the team who's put this together. And thank you to everybody who is joining us. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Olivia Marks-Waldman. I'm the Chief Executive of the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust. And we're delighted you're joining us as we showcase the new resources that we've created to support your events for Holocaust Memorial Day in January 2025. Just a quick note before we begin, some housekeeping. We have got closed captions available today. So if you want to make use of this so that captions come on the bottom of your screen, you should have the facility at the bottom of your screen to press on the tab that says Show Captions. So we recommend that if you think you'd find that useful, and also recommend that you use speaker view rather than gallery view, and I think that way you'll get the most out of the event. Those of us in the team are counting down. There are just under 4 months now until Holocaust Memorial Day. And it's great to see so many people and communities and organisations across the UK joining us today. It's the work that you do in your communities, planning, organising, running, delivering Holocaust Memorial Day activities that makes Holocaust Memorial Day make such an impact. And it ensures that all of us who attend those activities learn more about the past, empathise more also with people today especially, and together work to build a better future. Every year, our team at the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust takes the time to consider what resources might be helpful, what support we can provide to you to assist you remember those persecuted and people who were murdered during the Holocaust and during more recent genocides. Our new resources for 2025 provide, together with the large number of resources that those of you know our website will be aware of, more ways and more help for you in marking Holocaust Memorial Day. All these resources are available and free to download from our website. Many of you will know already that the theme for Holocaust Memorial Day in January 2025 is For a Better Future. There are so many things all of us can do to build a better future. We can speak up against Holocaust or genocide denial or distortion. We can speak up against prejudice. We can learn both about and from genocide. We can remember the individuals, the families, the communities who have been wiped out in the Holocaust and in more recent genocides. And of course, we can all take action. Holding an event or an activity for Holocaust Memorial Day provides your community, your group, your class, your friends, all to come together to remember people who were murdered simply because of who they were, to learn from genocide and build that better future. So, as I just finished my opening words, I'd like to thank the HMDT team who have made all of this possible. In particular, our operations team for ensuring that this event is all running smoothly, even if I didn't know when it was starting, and our outreach team, who are all working so hard to support you in marking Holocaust Memorial Day. I also want to thank our communications team, and particularly our Senior Digital Communications Officer, Beth and Tribe, for designing all the resources. When you see them, you'll see what I mean, they're gorgeous. And a particular thank you to Dr. Rachel Century, our Deputy Chief Executive, for overseeing the process of creating the materials we produce. And I'm now delighted to hand over to our Head of Outreach, the team who's doing all this work to support events all across the country, Dr. Tony Griffiths, to take us through the launch.
Thank you and welcome everyone. We're pleased to have new resources to share with you ahead of HMD 2025, a year in which we will be marking significant anniversaries, as you may already know. The 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest Nazi concentration camp, and the 30th anniversary of the genocide in Bosnia. Before we start to talk to you about the resources that we're launching for this year and help you to think about how you can mark HMD 2025, I'd like to first introduce my team, and they've made it so much easier to produce these resources. They've worked so hard this year, and I'm sure that you'll all join with me to thank them as you use them. So to start with, Kirsty Robson, who is our Senior Outreach Officer for Scotland, who also works with central government and Crown dependencies. Unfortunately, she can't be with us this afternoon, but has continued to work really hard. And we've got Hannah Josh, our Outreach Officer for Education and Youth. And Charlotte Dos Remedios, our Outreach Officer for Prisons, Museums and Workplaces. And we're also really grateful to have the support of Shirley Lennon and Sarah Robson and her team, our outreach consultants for Northern Ireland and Wales, respectively. The outreach team are all here to provide you with the support and advice that you need in order to mark HMD in a way that is meaningful and effective for your organisation and community. At the end of our discussions, we'll be happy to take some questions, so please do use the Q&A function at the bottom of your webinar screen, and we'll do our best to answer as many of those as possible. But our inquiries email address is always open should you have any further follow-up questions. We're pleased to be launching our new resources for HMD 2025. And as always, these resources are all free to use and could be found via our website. We'll go into detail of the resources and projects as we go along, but to provide an overview, we're delighted today to be launching the following: 2 competitions, several new life stories looking at the experiences of survivors of the Holocaust and more recent genocide, new lesson plans, new social media offerings for marking HMD online, and more. In addition to our newly published resources, and as in previous years, we also have our Ordinary Objects, Extraordinary Journeys resource. It's a unique and interactive experience. It follows the journeys of individuals affected by the Holocaust and Nazi persecution through an interactive map and objects belonging to individuals. We also have our memorial pages, where you can create a lasting personalised tribute for a loved one affected by genocide, or someone you have learnt about and whose experiences might have moved you. We're pleased to be launching new life stories today. Our life stories share the experiences of survivors of the Holocaust and of more recent genocides. They form a critical part of our educational offering, and we know that they make significant impact. One organiser told us that life stories in particular were a brilliant tool for engaging students and inspiring them to go on to do their own independent research. Today, we publish the life stories of Holocaust survivors Dorit Oliver-Wolff, Tommy Komoy, Yisrael Abelesh, Marianne Grant, and Alfred Garwood, and survivor of the genocide in Bosnia, Sabina Kadic. We're delighted to be joined today by Dorit Oliver-Wolff BEM, who features in our new life story collection. Unfortunately, we don't have time to hear all of Dorit's life story today, and there's so much to cover, but we would like to give you a brief overview of this interview that she very kindly said that she would join us for today. So thank you so much, Dorit, for joining us. We're really grateful. Can I ask first? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no.
That's absolutely fine, Dorit, no problem at all. Can I start first by asking you a question? Please, would you tell us in just a few minutes a little bit about your life? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. And of course, if I told you all the story, you would have to sit overnight here with me. And it is a privilege to be here, and obviously it's a privilege to have survived it. And no matter how you try, the Holocaust and the experiences that you have will always stay with you. It's part of your life. It is sitting here on your shoulder and just watching all over you. The message that I like to give to all the people who are listening, and I am very privileged to be talking to several schools or people who invite me to explain to them what a catastrophe it is to be killing and genocide. Because I'm Jewish, of course, I feel very much for the Jews. However, I also feel for those people who are just being killed for no reason. A life is a life, and a life is for living and to survive and for the people who come after us. But I believe very strongly that not only that our past is so important to pass on. At the moment when I go to my talks to the schools, I'm trying to emphasize respect. Unless you respect other people's differences, respect yourself, genocide and killing other people will never end. It is only through respect that we are all equal and that your life and my life is equally as important. When I was 5 years old, that's where this Holocaust started. And I was in Hungary, in Budapest, hidden. And most of the time I have been picked up once or twice, and I have been in different concentration camps. And to tell you the truth, I can't even remember it because I was too little. I was separated from my mother. And after the war, I was 9 years old and I weighed 3 stone. I have had no hair and I couldn't walk. All I had is my voice and the knowledge that I don't want to die. Although I didn't know what death was. Very few children know what it is. But I didn't want it. And after the war, it doesn't stop just because today we are liberated, hooray, Henry, it is all liberated. No, you are not, because anti-Semitism goes on. When I begged after the war, we were liberated and we went back to Novi Sad, which is Serbia. Now, it used to be Yugoslavia, that's where I came from. People still spat at me. People still called me stinking Jew. And that is always, and I kept on smelling myself, and I can assure you I don't smell, but I'm still Jewish. And wherever you go, anti-Semitism is somehow there. You go to a meeting and you just watch everybody. Do they like me? Do they hate me? If they dislike me, do they dislike me because of the color of my eyes or because I'm a Jew? So if you're Jewish, you have to be twice as good, twice as intelligent, twice as whatever you want, especially if you are a woman on top of it. Sorry, I just had to put in this pun. Life is not easy, especially now that history repeats itself. It's criminal, it's terrible. And it has to be stopped, but you can't do it alone. The Jewish people alone can't do it. And part of my talk is, please don't be a bystander. Today it's somebody else, it can be you. You have to fight for other people who are not capable to fight for themselves. And as long as I've got a breath in my body, yes, I'm going to continue to talk and to talk and to talk even more to all those people who are willing to listen. And who are not willing to listen, one has to make them listen. But listening alone is not enough. You have to understand and be aware of it, how paramount it is, not just sort of, oh, I'm sorry, do something about it. Stand up and be counted. And every opportunity that I can have, I will use and try to stop this anti-Semitism, this hatred for people. They hate each other, and that is just so wrong. And thank you very much. And the best you can do, let me talk wherever you can, and every person who listens to it hopefully learn something about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dorit. And if it's okay to finish with one more question in a few
Yes, ask it.
lines. Lovely, thank you. So for HMD 2025, as you know, we're commemorating 80 years since the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, but we're also reflecting on the many other 80th anniversaries. So if you don't mind saying, for you, in a few words, why do you think it's important to mark Holocaust Memorial Day?
To mark Holocaust Memorial Day, it's very, very important. I'm organizing for the 10th year now in Eastbourne, the Holocaust Memorial Day. And each year we have got more and more people. The more people there are, the more people, it is, in my eyes, in my heart, it is a mass funeral. We are talking for people who have no more voices, who can't talk, who are dead for no other reason because they were born Jewish. And surely that is not enough reason to put people in a gas chamber or to torture them, to dehumanize them. And people have to remember that. And whether it is now in Rwanda, in Balfour, or wherever it is, I mean, in Yemen, I mean, everywhere there are groups. Look at the Uyghurs. They are treated just like the Jews used to be during the Holocaust. So there are always perpetrators and horrible people who get some kind of a pleasure in killing other people. But us, the Jewish people, have been champions because everybody hates us. And that is just so wrong. And that's a Holocaust Memorial is basically every day a Holocaust Memorial Day to me, because my family has been killed. I had never the chance even to see my father. He was taken to a forced labor camp to Ukraine, and he was hacking stones, and he was starved to death for 4 years. My grandfather and his 3 sons, they were put into ice cold blue Danube. He had to dig 3 holes, 12, 14, and 16 years old. He was tied to a tree, and he has to watch his 3 sons freeze to death, again because they were Jewish. And those memories don't leave you. And all these other people, although I haven't met all of them, they're part of me, a part of the family, a part of the Jewish race. I'm not particularly religious, but I'm very Jewish. Religion left me behind somehow. I don't know how to do it anymore. And I wish you all of you a lot of success, and come down. My Holocaust Memorial Day, I say it mine, because I take it a personal thing, you know. It's my Holocaust, and share it with others. It's on the 27th of January.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll make sure that that's added to our map as well, Dorit, so people can find you and attend.
Come down. And thank you very much. And I'm very happy to belong to the part of your organization, because it is just so, and all the people who help. And I know you are not all Jewish, but don't worry. By the time you are long enough in the organization, you will become Jewish. And as I said, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Dorit. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to move on to the next part of our launch now, where I'd like to hand over to my colleague Charlotte, who will be sharing more information about our work in supporting prisons to mark HMD. We're excited to be continuing our partnership with Novus, who work to reduce reoffending through education. So we're working directly with the Ministry of Justice to engage prisons across the country as well. And Charlotte's going to share some more information now about an exciting prisons competition for HMD 2025. And in addition, she's going to talk some more about our social media packs, which have been redesigned and reinvigorated, especially for you to use for 2025 as well. Whether you're an individual, an organisation or a community, we want to hear all about your events, activities, and that includes social media posts as well. So I'll hand over to Charlotte now.
Thank you, Tony. So yes, last year we partnered with Novus, who are one of 4 prison education providers in England and Wales. And together we created a new lesson plan for custodial settings, after which prisoners could create pieces of creative reflection. The entries we received from Novus prisons ranged massively from poems and letters to paintings and illustrations. We also received photos of pottery, which prisoners had created, and even a recording of a podcast episode. We also received some incredible feedback from last year's competition. One which stands out to me personally was a message from a Novus teacher, and she said that one prisoner who had been expelled from school had never learned about the Holocaust before our lesson plan. And they were so inspired by the lesson that they rushed back to their cell and started planning their creative response straight away, rather than just waiting for the next lesson. The then prisons minister at the time, who sat on the competition's judging panel, said he was impressed not only by the high standards of the entries, but also by the deep thoughts and reflections which had gone into them. So this year, we are continuing our partnership with Novus, but we are now also working more centrally with HMPPS to roll out the competition with all 4 prison education providers in England and Wales. Through them, sites will receive the competition packs this week, but please do contact us if you have any questions about the competition. And this year, we are also really excited to launch our new social media offering. So firstly, we are going to be releasing new social media graphics for organisations and individuals to share during the HMD period. We've created new graphics, each one providing some historical context behind a genocide which we mark, a quote from an individual who experienced it. We hope that these new graphics will supplement the rise in social media engagement, which we have seen over the past few years, and continue the spread of HMD posts, which are both engaging and informative. We've also updated our Mark HMD on social media page to include a new HMD 2025 theme GIF. And we've also made it easier for you to explore our social media resources, such as videos, GIFs, graphics, and online safety advice. If you are considering posting about HMD on social media, we really encourage you to take a look and make the most of the resources that are available. We are also launching our new image library, and this will hold a collection of high-quality photographs from each genocide which we mark on HMD. Organisations can use these images for their HMD events, for example, in a PowerPoint, or share them on social media. We hope that this will further support event organisers in making access to these images easier, and therefore making these histories more visual and accessible. I hope that's given you a lot to think about, and I'd now like to hand over to Hannah, who is going to share some information about our 2 new Scottish life stories, and then to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Charlotte. I'm pleased to share our 2 new Scottish life stories that we're launching today. Tying in with the 2 anniversaries that we're commemorating this year, we're delighted to be sharing the experience of 2 incredible women who found their homes in Scotland. Marianne Grant, a Holocaust survivor who survives Theresienstadt, Auschwitz-Birkenau, and the final days of Bergen-Belsen concentration camps, as well as work camps. She used her artistic skill to survive and moved to Glasgow, where she married and raised a family. Her artwork is on permanent display in Kellingrove Art Gallery. And Sabina Caddick-Mackenzie, who survived the genocide in Bosnia, born in Sanski Most, Sabina, her sisters and mother fled to Slovenia and then to the UK. Now Sabina is the vice chair of Beyond Srebrenica, the charity working to raise awareness of the genocide in Bosnia in Scotland. As we've said, for HMD 2025, we'll be commemorating the 30th anniversary of the genocide in Bosnia. I'm now going to hand back to my colleague Charlotte to talk a little bit more about this.
Thank you, Hannah. So in July 1995, against a backdrop of the ongoing war, Bosnian Serb troops and paramilitaries descended on the town of Srebrenica and began shelling. Around 8,000 Muslim men and boys over 12 years old were murdered in Srebrenica. We're honoured to be working alongside friends and partners from organisations such as Remembering Srebrenica, Beyond Srebrenica, and the Bosnian Genocide Educational Trust, as well as survivors of the genocide in Bosnia. We're delighted to be joined by one of them today, Safet Vukalić, BEM, who was in his teens when the war broke out. Thank you, Safet, for joining us. I was hoping you might share a little of your experiences in Bosnia as a teen after the war broke out.
Thank you, Charlotte. I did long time ago, but sometimes feel it was only yesterday. Being a teen, I feel that those are the years that you really should enjoy your life. Unfortunately, that's when the war broke out, and I ended up thinking of whether I'm going to leave the next day. But also there was a period where I was on my, I was alone with two sisters and my mum, and I felt I have to look after them, even though there was really not much I could do. So I feel like my teens have certainly, I didn't want other people to experience that ever, but certainly when you're developing, when you're looking forward to life, you end up dealing with the war, and it's certainly not something you want in your memories forever, but they do, as we mentioned earlier, it doesn't go away as you grow up. In fact, considering everything that's happening around the world these days, it still hurts. We've not learned, we keep failing time after time, and it just keeps repeating. And I have two young children, and I certainly hope when they're in their teens, they don't have to think about wars and things, but unfortunately they will do. But we have to do better. We have to learn from genocides, from Holocaust, and it shouldn't stop. Many times I've been asked, what do we want to learn about? Should we not keep past in the past? Well, the problem is we keep repeating the past, and that's why we need to continue learning. So my teen years were not as happy as I wish on other people. And one thing that did happen in those teens, up to that point, I was a Bosnian or Yugoslav who was a Muslim, but when the war started, I was suddenly a teen Muslim, and not necessarily by choice. That's how we ended up being seen as. But yeah, I'll keep that one short too.
Thank you, Safet. And as we're approaching 30 years since the genocide in Bosnia, a really significant anniversary, and keeping in mind the theme for HMD 2025, for a better future, what do you hope our activity organisers do in aid of that better future?
I think you just need to push towards people respecting the law. Certainly for Bosnia, we want people to accept that genocide. We have a law in Bosnia. We have a law that's genocide in Ireland isn't allowed, but unfortunately, it's not implemented. Country like Bosnia, that's small, that's surrounded by two countries that want to still divide, needs the international community to implement the laws and make sure it applies to everyone. Whether it's never again, whether it's human rights, whatever it is, it should apply everyone everywhere. And I want politicians to get involved more, but to actually mean it, not just to come and say words never again, which are easily said, but they do have a real meaning. And I do feel that, as I've heard people before, we should saying that we should stop saying it. No, we shouldn't. We must continue to work towards it. As hard as it is, sometimes it's kind of almost want to make you give up, but we have to continue. We have no choice. I have no choice. I want to try and do even a little that I can for better tomorrow, better future.
Thank you, Safet. We're so grateful for all of the work that you do. I'd now like to pass to my colleague Hannah to share more about our resources and opportunities for schools and youth this year.
Thank you all. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the hard work of two members of our youth board, Barnabas Baylant and Eloise Bishop, who wrote two of those life stories that we've launched today. This year, to reflect the significant anniversary of the genocide in Bosnia, we're going to be launching our secondary school competition to design a memorial. This competition will involve a short lesson about the Holocaust Memorial Day and the genocide in Bosnia. This lesson could be used as an assembly, a tutor time activity, or extended into a full hour session, depending on the needs of the class and, of course, the availability of the school. Students will then have the opportunity to design a memorial to represent the 30th anniversary. These designs can be entered into our competition, and the top 10 designs will be displayed at the national ceremony in London. We also have many other exciting resources that are coming out this year, including our new PHSE lesson. This lesson plan focuses on the meaning of discrimination and how it can impact us. Using suggested curriculum goals for both PHSE and RSC, this lesson should fit well into lesson planning for ages 9 to 16. We have several different versions of the lesson plan to fit the different goals for each year group. There are differentiated, and of course, they can also be adjusted for the needs of the class. If you've been inspired by the life stories you've heard today, we have many more written and in video form on our website, and easy to read versions of some of the life stories that are accessible for younger readers. These life stories could be used as part of a reading comprehension lesson, as inspiration for a writing task such as a newspaper report, alongside a history lesson to act as a source example, or as inspiration for a portrait, memorial, or another art piece. Life stories are a wonderful way to further engage students in learning more about the Holocaust and more recent genocides, as they can help students gain a deeper understanding of the context of events and real experiences of people. For university students and larger events, these life stories could also be used in reading clubs or as part of ceremonies and exhibitions. They could be read in full or in part to support a meaningful Holocaust Memorial Day ceremony, or videos could be shown as part of an exhibition piece. I now have the pleasure of speaking to Anna, a student at the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire, who is here to tell us about her plans for Holocaust Memorial Day 2025. So, Anna, could you introduce yourself and tell us how you plan on marking HMD 2025?
Sure. So my name is Anna Dombaiotis, and I'm a fourth-year vocal studies student at the Conservatoire in Birmingham. And 2025 will be marking HMD for the first time in our history with an event called Postscript, a musical exhibition for Holocaust Memorial Day, which also constitutes as my final project at the Conservatoire. I was very inspired by the work at HMDT and wanted to explore how music can be a valuable and sometimes overlooked artifact when it comes to understanding the individual stories of the Holocaust. It will take place in 4 sections, detailing life before and after the Holocaust, and also focusing particularly on the history of Theresienstadt and Mauthausen.
Fantastic. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you found the music that you're using?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I was visiting Linz to see my boyfriend and his family, and it was the first time that I had actually visited a camp, so Mauthausen. And I'm first and foremost a music student, but I've always been interested in history. And I also knew personal connection that my grandfather was Greek, and he was a labourer in Austria during the war, a forced labourer. So upon learning about what had happened at Mauthausen, I got quite curious about the musical artifacts of its history. And I came across the first piece that I found for the project, which is the Mauthausen Trilogy by Mikis Theodorakis, with words from Iakovos Kambanelis, who was a survivor of the camp. As you can imagine, I was profoundly touched by this piece, and I really felt like I wanted to present it. And I had already been studying interval works by Bertolt Brecht and Hans Eisler, so the project started to take form. The other pieces came shortly after, with some further research into the role of music within camp settings elsewhere, leading me to find the works of Ilse Weber, Karl Schwenk, Adolf Strauss, and these make up the main body of the second section. The pieces making up the final section look at life after the war. So we're looking at I Never Saw Another Butterfly by Laurie Leitzman, and For a Look or a Touch by Jake Heggie. And these explore how survivors built new lives following their experiences, and how modern composers pay tribute to survivors and the events that they experienced. And throughout this process, it's been really fascinating to receive guidance from the teams at HMDT, but also at KZ Mauthausen.
It's wonderful to hear about all the music that you're going to be using. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you use some of our resources in planning in your event?
Yeah, so at HMDT, there's a wonderful wealth of resources that's all, free to access. It's just incredible. And they've really helped me expand my research. So a life story in particular that I found really interesting was that of Anita Laska-Waltisch, MBE, whose memoir is available to read on the page. Her story is incredible, and the fact that the music underpins every turn of it is very fascinating, and recounts Anita's about camp orchestras, their organisation and their function is invaluable in piecing together the multifaceted role of music within the concentration camps. The testimony regarding her cultural education as a young woman and the discrimination she faced also touched me personally as a music student. And it's true stories like these that remind us of the real impact of the Holocaust, and it informs our actions in our own personal lives going forward.
And my last question for you, why do you think that music is such a powerful way to connect with memorials and learning events?
I feel that music and oral tradition, they're both intensely human means of communication, and we believe that in this instance it's very important to bring this music and these stories to the forefront of the programs at RBC. Much of it's quite niche, it doesn't regularly get performed, and therefore it's not very accessible to the wider community at the moment, apart from quite niche music scholars. In combination with the readings of testimony, our goal is to humanize a history which is quite easy to get lost in due to its magnitude. It encourages empathy and increased educational awareness. And I feel that music has a way of showing us something about the individual composers that's quite difficult to demonstrate in other mediums. Even if I couldn't understand the text that Ilse Weber wrote, I'd be able to connect to her story through her music really easily. I'm personally really passionate about getting this music off the page into performance spaces so that it can be accessed more widely. For instance, by communities that would otherwise walk past a music score in a museum and just not engage with it. And in a time like today, where we're more often divided than we are united, it's more important than ever to sing this music, share these stories, and hold space for remembrance as a multicultural community.
Thank you so much for your answers and for your amazing work. I'm now going to pass back to my colleague Tony to talk a little bit more.
Thank you, Hannah. And thank you to all of our guests so far. It's such a privilege to have you here with us. And thank you to the whole team for making these resources possible, not just the outreach team, but all of the rest of the support from across the wider team that we have in making these possible. We're so proud that these resources are completed and available and ready for you to use. They're obviously free, as we've mentioned before, to download from our website, but you can contact us if you need any support. I'd also just like to stop for a moment as well to highlight one more resource, if I may. And this is going to be available before HMD. So in May, we launched our 80 Candles for 80 Years project. It's a nationwide community arts project where 80 bespoke candle holders are being designed as we speak and created by communities and organisations from across the UK, across different sectors and organisations. And each one is going to highlight the life of an individual or a community persecuted by the Nazis. The 80 candle holders will be showcased in a digital exhibition, which you can use as part of your HMD activity, and more information on that will be available very soon. You can subscribe to our newsletter to hear when this becomes available and other really important information to keep you updated across the HMD period. I'd like once again to thank all of our guests for their contributions today and to the rest of the team for their hard work in creating these resources, but also in putting on this event, and to everybody here for joining us. We've got some time now for some questions. We are running slightly ahead of schedule, which is rare but exciting. And I'm going to go now to the Q&A box to see what questions we can answer for you today. But as I said, our inquiries email is always open to you. So that's inquiries@hmd.org.uk. There's a Q&A box just at the bottom. If you haven't spotted it already, there's time for you to add your question now. So the first one I'm going to take is from Laura, who says, do we use specific hashtags on socials so we can promote events? Well, we do have specific hashtags on social media, so I'll just pass over to Charlotte for a bit more information on that for you.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. So yes, we do have some hashtags, hashtag Holocaust Memorial Day, hashtag HMD 2025, and also hashtag Like the Darkness if you're posting a picture about a building lighting up in purple or a candle being placed in your window. Aside from hashtags, there's lots of other ways you can promote your event, for example, by entering it onto our map, which is live on our website already, and you can input your your local event, and local members of the community can see it and join, and you can put more details on there as well. So yeah, thank you, Tony.
No problem at all. And it's probably worth noting that our map, although it's completely accessible to the public, there is an option for your activity or event to be shown as unlisted, which means that we will find out your valuable information so we can collect data on HMD and how people are marking, but it won't necessarily be publicly accessible. This map is really important to us in terms of mapping the impact of HMD across the UK, but you absolutely have no obligation to share your public details if you don't want to. Okay, so moving on to another question then, Anna, it's for you, if that's okay. So we have Lydia, who is interested to know more about the exhibition being shown on the music that you've mentioned today, and whether you can share details either now or whether we can send those out afterwards. So over to you, Anna.
Yeah, sure. So the musical exhibition is a performance on the 27th of January in our East Side Jazz Club at Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. It'll be at 7 p.m. and it's at the Conservatoire in Birmingham. I will put this on the map so it will be accessible. And you can also find information about the event on Facebook and on Instagram under Postscript, the musical exhibition for Holocaust Memorial Day.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
There's a question as well about the recording of today's event, which will be made accessible to you all, and we'll be sharing that in due course. So if there's anything that you've missed, don't worry, you'll get to watch it back at a certain point in the coming days. Okay, so I'm just going to have a look through the rest of our questions here. If you want to engage more with HMD activity projects that are near you or activities, the map is live from today. So please go onto our website, and that's populated by people such as yourselves. So activities will be placed on there if they are publicly available. There's also Eventbrite, which occasionally has activities posted on there, and you can contact us directly through our inquiries website. We're interested in knowing about everything that you're doing, whether it's an HMD public activity, a civic ceremony, or a social media post. We'd like to know about everything, please. Okay, so there's another question just about that on the map asking, is it just public events? So as I've just mentioned, no, it absolutely isn't. We'd like to know what you're doing and who you're working with. We really, really appreciate collaborative work at HMD. It's what it's about. It's a day for everyone. So the more information you can share with us, the better. And it helps us to tailor make our resources for next year as well, using your really valuable feedback. So lots of thanks in the questions to our speakers. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, I'm just going to have one more look through. Okay. In terms of, so there's a question about fundraising for your activities. Quite a lot of activities are funded by the organisations that put them on. Sometimes there are local authorities that are marking the day in your area, so it's worth getting involved with local libraries, local authorities as well, and any help that you need in terms of support or planning for your activity, please do get in touch and we'll do our best to support you or point you in the right direction. Okay, I think that's it for the questions for the moment. So as I said, please do get in touch if there's any more things that you would like to cover or questions that come to mind later. So thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you all today and to share about our resources that we've been working so hard on in the last year. I really hope that it's inspired you and your activities in terms of your planning. And I'd like to now hand over to Olivia, our Chief Exec, to give some closing remarks. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everybody. I want to thank everybody who's been part of this event, but I particularly want to start with Dorit and Safet. I love doing this event every year. It's always so exciting seeing the creative ideas that come up in the questions, and I love seeing all the resources that the team has been working so hard to develop. But at the heart of all of this is the history that we're commemorating. And Dorit and Safet, we don't take for granted the time and energy that you put in. On this event, we're asking you to contribute so briefly and to try and convey so concisely such an enormous history. And it's and we're asking you to do this in a very, very brief time. And we really appreciate that. We're so grateful to you, and everybody listening here and watching, I know, is kind of simultaneously excited about what they can all do, what we can all do for Holocaust Memorial Day, but also very conscious that we're doing so to honour you and your families and the histories that you have experienced. Dorit, you experienced it as such a young child, and it's almost it almost goes by too quickly without us really absorbing that you were only 5 years old and 9 at the end of the war, and such a young child to experience those horrors. And Safet as a teenager experiencing those that separation from family, that uncertainty, and then later to know what your family went through. We don't take for granted the fact that you're able to share with us that history, and thank you so very much for doing so at this event today. Thank you also to all the HMDT team for engaging with Safet and Dorit's histories, and of so many other individuals who have experienced the Holocaust and recent genocides, and doing so in a way that creates resources for everybody across the country to be able to run Holocaust Memorial Day events. Tony, you are such a strong leader of the outreach team. You're an inspirational leader. And I know that all the members of the team, Hannah, Charlotte, and Kirsty, you are such a strong team working so hard, and it's deeply appreciated not only by me but by all the activity organisers around the country. Shirley and Sarah working so hard in Northern Ireland and in Wales. We're grateful to you for the work you do and the collaborative way in which you do it with our team. Rebecca and Graham in the ops team. I've been told to say thank you for making this event run smoothly. It's so much more than that. We know the work that the ops team does all through the year to make sure so much of HMD runs smoothly. And Bethan, I said at the beginning about those resources, if you've had a chance to look at some of the links that Hannah's been putting in the chat, you'll see what I meant about how beautiful and engaging those resources are. All of that takes so much work. And of course, Rachel Century, who has put so much into this event and to HMDT, who's not visible today because of other activities she's having to do, but has put so much into making sure these resources would be ready for today so that everybody can use them. Thank you, all of you, for taking the time to join us on the call. We know you're working hard to develop your plans for January. Please keep in touch with us and with the outreach team. We want to know what you're doing. We've talked about the map, but we're here to help you develop those ideas and develop those events, all of which is to make sure that people across the United Kingdom can learn more about the history that Safet and Doret have been telling us, learn more about the history that affected so many more people, and not only learn the facts of what happened, but learn the impact that it had on individuals, and so that we can all empathise more with people today who are facing prejudice as well, and that we can all take action for a better future. So remember the theme, use it, let it inspire you. Tell us how you're marking HMD, use those hashtags that Charlotte told us about, subscribe on our social media channels, and be in touch so that we can help you with your events. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you. Bye.